All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for some of you colleagues. Welcome to this Stat Cafe on the STAT tool. My name is Sokol Vako. I'm one of the lecturers here at the United Nations Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific. And again, it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to this Stat Cafe. Before we get started with today's agenda, I would like to just remind you of a couple of housekeeping items. One is that the webinar is being recorded, and we'll share a link to it through the webpage of the Stat Cafes that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. And then the other item is about questions and comments that you might have. Please feel free to type those in the chat. We'll try to pick up as many of those as we can towards the end of the Stat Cafe. We have a very packed agenda, so let me get started with the first item and introduce our director here at the Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific, Ms. Shailja Sharma, for some opening remarks. Ms. Sharma joined the Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific as its director in August 2021. Dr. Sharma has provided strategic direction and leadership to SIAP. She has ensured effective implementation of the Institute's mission and goals, fostering collaboration with international and regional organizations. Prior to joining SIAP, Dr. Sharma has over 36 years of progressive experience in a leadership and advisory capacity in the National Statistical Office of the Government of India. She served as Director General of Statistics at the NSO of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation after serving in several other capacities. The floor over to you, Sharma-san, for some opening remarks, please.
Thank you so much, Sokol, for giving me the floor. Good morning, good afternoon, participants. And this is one Stats Cafe, which we were really looking forward to, as this was long pending, and which will be kind of shortly disseminated in the country. So it is a very good way to kind of sensitize all who are present here on this tool. And some of you who had attended the UNSC session in New York in March 2024, this global network of institutions for statistical training, which is commonly called GIST, launched a new tool. And this is the Statistical Training Needs Assessment Tool, abbreviated as STAT tool, to help the NSOs lead training provision for their staff and the wider national statistical system. The tool facilitates informed decision on capacity needs in the NSOs, and the tool, before it was launched, it was piloted in some countries for ensuring that it meets key strategic needs. Now, we all know, because we are in NSOs and we have been attending sessions of GIST, that for a couple of years, GIST has been working on supporting the training needs of NSOs. And this STAT tool has been developed to help NSOs to assess and analyze staff skill gaps and strategically decide on how to prioritize and meet their training needs by using different informal and this global network of institutions. STAT tool consists of 3 questionnaires to assess skills, levels, and training needs at the NSOs and within the national statistical system, as well as guidance on how to analyze the data using R and Power BI, how to prioritize among training needs, and how to establish a varied training plan for the NSO and, of course, largely the NSS. The tool has been piloted in 2 phases. And in the second phase, the National Administrative Department of Statistics of Colombia and the Ghana Statistical Service participated in the second and more extensive phase of the pilot, which included using the 3 questionnaires to conduct surveys among staff in NSOs and NSS, as well as analysis of data collected to develop a training plan. As I was saying, the tool was launched in the UNSC meeting, and the tool has been developed by, she was like mainly instrumental in developing this tool, Charlotte Hansen. She's here very much with us, and she'll be talking to us and kind of giving us insights on the provisions of this tool. I'm very thankful to Dr. Peter Pepra from the Ghana Statistical Office, who is going to be present here and tell us how the tool has contributed to the efforts of GSS to put training at the center of organizational development based on the needs of staff and the organization. We also have Ms. Eshat Hassan, Chief Statistician, Maldives Bureau of Statistics, and Mr. J.S. Tomar, Director from NSO India, who have very kindly agreed to participate in this session, and they'll be giving their insights on the utility of the tool. Thank you so much, and over to you, Sokol.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sharma-san, for that introduction. As Sharma-san mentioned, we're very happy to welcome colleagues throughout the world who have played a key role in the development and implementation of the STAT tool. First, to get us started with an introduction to the STAT tool, it is my pleasure to welcome Charlotte. So while Charlotte puts up her presentation, let me quickly introduce her. Many of you are probably familiar with Charlotte, as she has been very much active in this tool and more broadly in the work of GIST. Charlotte Hansen has worked as a consultant for the UN Statistics Division in the past years and has developed the Statistical Training's Needs Assessment Tool, STAT, in cooperation with a global network of institutions for statistical trainings. Previously, Charlotte worked at Statistics Denmark, where she managed the statistical capacity building projects there, as well as at UNFPA, where she worked on reproductive health-related topics. So, Charlotte, over to you for your introduction here of the STAT tool.
Great. Thank you so much, Sokol and Saija, for inviting me also to the Stats Café. I think this is a great opportunity to raise awareness on the STAT, the Statistical Training Needs Assessment tool that was developed by GIST. So let me jump into my
statistical system.
I will give you like a brief introduction to some of the details that Saija was already mentioning. So let me share my screen. So STAT in brief. So as Saija already said, this is a tool for national statistical officers to identify, prioritize, and meet learning needs of staff. And this identify, prioritize, and meet are kind of key in STAT, and it also define the different phases that we have sort of organized STAT into. It's a country-owned tool, so it's open source, as you can say. It's any NSO can take it on board as their tool. They can adjust it the way they want. But it's really a tool to help to think more strategically about competence development and think about competence development as a regular task in a statistical office like any other task. Besides the NSO, STAT also provides the opportunity to identify and meet learning needs of those authorities that work within the national statistical system. So why was this tool needed? GIST conducted an assessment prior to developing STAT to see what are different countries doing in regard to training programs of within the statistical offices around the world, and it was discovered that there's a large variation. Some countries have very extensive programs, and some countries have nothing. But what we know is that sort of a more sustainable and sort of more strategically defined training program is crucial for developing the staff, the competencies of staff, and this is what STAT is intended to do. So I will take you now through the 4 phases of STAT. The first one is to collect information on the skills gaps and the training needs that staff has. For this, we have 3 questionnaires in Google Forms. So it's an open source program we use so everyone can easily adopt the questionnaires. So the 3 questionnaires are organized into 2 for the NSO, which is the first one is for the individual staff to kind of self-assess where do they feel their needs are on a range from that skill is not necessary for me to I have no need to I'm a very advanced sort of competent staff to what are my actual training needs and what is my priority for receiving training in a particular skill. Then on the other side, we asked the managers to identify sort of the skills gaps in the
been attending sessions of just
and this is a way to look at the skills and training needs from both sides of the organization, from the individual level to the more institutional aspect. And we use this later on, and I will show you to analyze and prioritize what the organization should focus on. And then there's the third questionnaire, which is for staff working with statistics production within ministries and other public authorities within the national statistical system. That questionnaire is as such also managed by the NSO, and it's an opportunity for them to assess where are our colleagues within the NSS and what are their needs, and maybe can we as an organization support them in developing their competencies, thinking of the national statistics system as a whole. So for the questionnaires, we have identified 157 skills for staff in different functions. And we use those 157 skills for all three questionnaires. So at the end of the day, the results can be compared across. And the idea is that staff and managers identify themselves with their area of work where they primarily are occupied in. So we have a skip logic. So you don't respond to all 157 skills. You respond to a set of skills that's relevant for your type of work, plus a set of skills that we have identified that's relevant for all staff, irrespectively of what you do. And maybe what is also a bit unique with the stat is that we, of course, focus on the skills of people that work with statistics production, but also looking at other aspects of the NSO. So we have the whole RT aspect, communication dissemination, and we have all the support functions in an organization that's needed for it to work, which is also the case for NSO. So we also look at the skills of people that work in the finance department, in HR and administrative and secretarial functions. And then if you are a manager, there's a special section for managers, plus we have a section for all staff where we look at personal skills and some basic IT skills, etc. We basically want the respondents to identify areas where they have a high priority training need, so where it's very important for them to receive training, and at what level as well is also what we're trying to identify, because that will play a role in how to meet those needs at the end of the day. The questionnaires are set up in a flexible way, in the meaning that each NSO can adjust their skill set, because organizations have different needs. Some use more administrative data than others. Some are more focused on surveys, etc. So there's an opportunity to adjust the questionnaires if that's necessary. So once we have the data, the survey's been conducted, and the data is ready, we have developed an analysis package, which consists of a set of R codes that can extract the data from the Google Sheets, which come from the Google Forms, into a Power BI setup where we have made some visualizations that will help the analysis. So basically, the system can quite easily extract the data from this very, very big Excel file into a nice setup in Power BI. And we have a guide, of course, on how to do that. And as I said earlier, the questionnaires have a similar setup, which is useful also once we start to analyze the data, because we can compare the different questionnaires and see where are there similar needs, where do managers, where do staff identify similar needs, where is there a difference, and maybe investigate why is there a difference. And what we also see is that the stat package here is also an opportunity for a few people within the organization to learn R and Power BI, because things have been kind of pre-developed, and And this is an opportunity to kind of work with a bit of data that's not too complex in itself. And this is just to show you how it will look in Power BI. This is some charts on personal skills. So we have the respondents where we ask them, what is your current level of knowledge? And they can basically say from, well, maybe the skill is not relevant for them, but otherwise the range is from no knowledge to advanced. And then the second question is it a priority to receive training in that particular skill? And then you can see here, so here you can identify, for example, for written communication skills, there's quite a large number of the respondents that have or identify themselves as having immediate knowledge. And if we look down at the priority, there's not that many that would identify themselves as having a high priority to learn that, while if we look more on project and time management and facilitation techniques, there seems to be a bit of a higher need to develop those skills. So that's kind of the way Power BI can help with analysis. So now the difficult part begins, because once we have the data ready and set up in Power BI, we need to analyze it and to make decisions on what the organization should prioritize and focus on. And the challenge is, of course, there are many learning needs, and how do you focus on the most crucial ones and the beneficial ones, both from the staff perspective and also from the institutional perspectives. So we have a set of prioritizations recommendations in the guidance that can kind of help give directions to what are the priorities an organization could focus on. Whether there's like areas where there are many staff that express a need, to areas where maybe not many staff has a need, but it's a high priority for the organization. So there are different considerations to take into account when you prioritize among the needs. And once you kind of have your list of prioritized learning needs, the next step is, so how do you meet those learning needs? And here STAT has kind of like a whole set where we introduce different type of learning approaches. And the idea is also to think more broadly about learning, not only learning by face-to-face training, but thinking more broadly on both formal and informal learning approaches. And there are many different types, of course. So there's a whole set of explanations for what are different learning approaches. And the idea is to support the development of this 2-3 year institutional training plan, where we have our prioritized learning needs, and then we identify, so this specific skill, if you want to develop that, what type of learning approach do we want to use to train our staff? It could be an e-learning course supported by discussion groups. It could be, maybe it's best to put up a network within the organization where staff can meet and discuss, etc. And STAT also provides some recommendations for how to develop a strategy for competence development. So a bit higher level than the actual institutional training plan, and maybe looking a bit more ahead. But it's also an opportunity to discuss more, how do we want to work with competence development within our organization, and maybe moving towards this idea of the learning organization, where the organization constantly learn, also learn from mistakes, and where knowledge sharing is kind of like a key aspect of competence development within the organization. So my second last slide here is, so STAT kind of try also to promote new ways of improving staff skills.
Meeting and...
But I said earlier, so training and learning doesn't only take place in the classroom. We work towards this model that's called 70-20-10, where 70% of the way people learn is simply by doing the job. 20% is more informal learning, and 10% is sort of the more formal learning approaches. We also try to promote the use of staff as trainers, so where experienced staff train other staff, because there's a lot of resources within organizations. And this is a great capacity to use, especially when we know we all have limited resources to provide sort of more formal training also. And then generally also to promote the use of more e-learning, free e-learning. There are, of course, challenges with using e-learning, but there are ways to, STAT discusses a way to kind of come around this, for example, to establish discussion groups. So maybe a same group of people take the same e-learning, but then they meet once a week to discuss challenges. Maybe there's even an in-house facilitator to help along the way. So yeah, so there are different ways to learn. So just my last slide is the link to where STAT is available. It's on the website of GIST. And yeah, we have all the different documents there. There's also a quick guide to implementing STAT, which might give sort of an idea of what it takes. At the end of the day, implementing STAT is really about being willing also to change the way the organization currently work with competence development and make it sort of like a key priority for the organization. So that's all for me. Sokol, over to you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Charlotte. I know we put you in a tough spot here to do a 10, 15-minute introduction to something that we could spend, as you said, hours and days discussing some of the intricacies around it. But thank you very much for introducing and sharing with us how STAT tool can at the top level support the activities of NSOs. Let's move right ahead with our next person.
Contributed to the efforts of GSS.
Mentioned in her introduction, one of the countries that has already implemented the STAT tool is Ghana, and it's my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Peter Pepra, who is an Assistant Chief Statistician and Director of Methods and Standards at the Ghana Statistical Services. Dr. Pepra has over 25 years of working experience and specialized in the conduct of household surveys and population and housing censuses. Currently, he is serving as Chief Technical Advisor of the Gambia 2024 Population and Housing Census. He has expertise in the implementation of health-related household surveys, such as demographic and health surveys, the mix surveys, maternal, adolescents, and child health security surveys. So Dr. Peter has extensive experience. You can read a little bit more about all the excellent work that he has done on the Stat Café website. For the sake of time, let me just pass the floor to him to share the experience of Ghana in implementing the STAT tool. Peter, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sokol. Good day, everyone, and all protocols observed. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity on Stats Café series. And as Charlotte indicated, Ghana has gone through this because it wasn't an easy task, but of course, there is the need to get on board and ensure that we benefit from it. For us as an institution, ladies and gentlemen, this is really the outline of my presentation. I think I have about 9 points to touch on, but the bottom line of it is we ask ourselves why the decision to embrace stats. And for us to remain relevant and address emerging data requests, we see the utilization of stats as an opportunity to transform the institution. In other words, we initiated an institutional transformational agenda to strategically position itself in the production of official statistics to meet the global statistical transformation, to direct policy, planning, and development in the contemporary statistical realm. And in doing this, we started by assessing ourselves as National Statistical Office, and likewise extended the scope to the institutions that are also part of the National Statistical System to really identify the gap in the existing capacities we have. and looked at how best we can extend the pathway. So we had an institutional framework for capacity building, even though on paper it existed, but it wasn't well structured. So the question was, are we doing something about it? Are we to see how best it will function? It will help us to improve. So we had series of meetings, and these, even a lot of questions were posed to guide us, take decisions, and see how best we can proceed and improve. And these are some of the questions that came into mind that needed to be addressed. How were the existing capacities and their progressions aligned with our work output? How were the existing capacities and their progressions aligned with value for work? Of course, you come to work, what you are being paid for, is that what you are contributing to the development of the country when it comes to statistics?
To the STAT tool, it is my pleasure to welcome
to your work. What internal and external training resources were available? And the other side of it is, was training a priority intervention for this transformation? These are some basic questions that we thought we need to get answers to, so that at least it will help us strategize to forge ahead. And in trying to address these, such engagement also met the review of the statistics corporate plan. We had an old one which was more or less getting to the end of a program, so we needed to develop another one for 2020 to 2024. So I think the timing was good. And we also had to look at our competency framework. So all these fed into certain discussions and actions we took. First, by looking at skills audits. So we developed a form of which staff themselves completed, telling us what they have, what the strength in certain areas and where they have weaknesses, so that we can rely on it to develop training outline for staff. We also looked at or introducing knowledge sharing mechanism, which I think Charlotte also mentioned in her presentation. Those who are experienced, who have been in the system for a longer period or who have been involved in other programs, could also share ideas with their colleagues for them also to build on. And as I've already mentioned, the corporate plan was reviewed, and then areas that we needed capacity to be able to achieve or carry out that assignment also were all considered. The other side of it we called was brain circulation. Was it possible to move staff around
the UN Statistics Division in the past
with other MDAs, that's ministries, department and agencies, or other educational institutions, for them to learn and bring on board so that we can improve? The competency framework, as I've mentioned, was also a key area. Other areas in helping to have that transformation was the need to carry out staff satisfaction survey to find out their views, the opinion about how things are being structured, how things are being done within the institution, whether really is to their satisfaction or there is need for improvement. We also looked at developing transformational roadmap and align that one with the capacity building initiatives that we have planned. There was the need to also look at a structured mix of capacity building interventions, not just in fact, we have a broader organogram. So there was the need to look at all these and see how best we can blend all these strategies to ensure that at least we get staff well equipped to be able to meet the demand. There was also the need for measuring work outputs of staff. And the last that we also considered was building the capacity of staff so that they can hold the mantle if the older ones are not there. So planning for successes was also something that came into the planning. But of course, the chart on the right-hand side gives us an idea about the efforts that, the results of the effort that we placed into it, because there was the need to look at something we call the CAN agenda, which was introduced by the leadership of Ghana Statistical Service in 2023, where the aim is to bring change into the system, looking at this transformational agenda, and then it must be automated, at least be driven by technology and creativity, the novelty part of it. So in having all those things or these things that I've mentioned in mind, the question is, how do we proceed? And fortunately, GIST was identified to be in the system. At least the leadership met the leadership of GIST and said, is it possible to have capacity strengthening programs? First of all, even to evaluate what we have in the system and see how best we can proceed. And START 2 was also something that had been developed and had been piloted in Colombia. So there was the need to utilize it. And we got on board on that. So as we got to know, it's something that needed a consolidation of various capacities of staff, and then look at how best we can eliminate inefficiencies. But of course, in doing all these, there is the need to also look at the cost component. So the cost efficiency aspect also had to come in. Now, there was the need to look for training resources. So the collaboration aspect also came in, where Ghana Statistical Service collaborated with Statistics Norway, at least to learn something from what they have been able to do. We are aware that they are far ahead of us, and therefore we needed to tap on their experience in collaboration with GIST and UN Statistics Division, see how best we can achieve our mandate or our goal on this. So in totality, there was the need to also look at another approach where we realized in doing this, we can also depend on peer learning, capacity building approach. As I've already mentioned, that's at the NSOs level. And also integrate a holistic approach that addresses both individual soft and hard skills development in the organizational capacity. We attempted to also define the capacity building outputs through the alignment of the training, the scope, the timing, and approaches and content. Because we realize that we have diverse background and each needs certain level of capacity, but how do you approach it was also another thing that we needed to look at. The timing also. And you realize that sometimes in a particular group, they may need just 3 days orientation or training to get to where they need to get to. Other group also may need about 5 days. And is it the day, in terms of the days, in each day, how many hours are we to even consider? So all these were part of the discussions that we had. Now, after that, the question is, what has come out of the rollout of stats so far in Ghana Statistical Service? We've managed to identify specific training needs in relation to job responsibilities, at least using the tool for each staff. We've been able to develop training plan based on staff categorizations. with the support of the HR, or I would say is basically the mandate of the HR, we managed to get the profile of each staff in terms of the capacity building. Sorry. And also look at the capacity training methods for each group. Of course, we heard about the 70-20-10 approach, but even with the former one, which is the 10%, how do we go about it? So we also looked at mapping and integrating different training interventions and ensure that at least each works for us. Other aspects that we've done or other initiatives we've also carried out is the identification of funds for it. With the existence of a project, the World Bank project, which is HISWA, we've managed to get some support to ensure that at least we in a minimum scale, we get something to
raise awareness on
and ensure that they are at par or they meet the expectations that we have set out for ourselves. I've mentioned the time, but again, in relating it to other resource constraints, we realize that the time is very critical. And therefore, there is the need for further discussions, even on how to structure it. Sometimes you realize that the individuals are ready for it. But the question is, how many days? Are their directors ready to release them? Are there other competing assignments that they are on board? So all these things have been looked at, or we keep looking at it. It's something review. It's a review program that we dedicate time so that at least majority can benefit from the whole exercise. Currently, we've been able to develop and finalize the comprehensive learning strategy to guide what we have in mind. And there have been an existence of training programs in diverse ways, but at least we've also realized that there's the need to build on the learning culture and the pathways to ensure that we sustain the agenda. And as I've already mentioned, through this, we've built a strong collaboration with Statistics Norway to learn from them through exchange programs. The good thing is we have training center, and it's been equipped recently, and therefore, at least that one is also there for us to utilize fully. So if you are talking about what has come out of the stats, the
assessment tool that was developed by
areas that we can boast of. With all these, I don't think there will be a turning back. We must stay focused and ensure that we benefit fully in transforming the institution. And the question is, how have we planned to pick up training with other priority areas? You know, because of the fact that now we are not looking at only the National Statistical Office, but we are also getting the ministries, departments, and agencies under the National Statistical System on board. We have managed to use the tool, customize it for the work done by the MDAs to fit into it. So they've also completed the form or the questionnaires to enable us identify their skill gaps, where we can also zoom them into the training program. The next few months and next year, time will be dedicated for the capacity building of members from these institutions as well. We've also managed to collaborate with some institutions, that's the university, those in academia, other development partners, CSOs that we are working with closely to get on board the stats so that at least their capacity can also be built, and holistically we can come up together to produce the required official statistics. We are trying to standardize training content. I think I've mentioned it in passing. The methodologies, evaluation process to maintain consistency and quality across all capacity building programs within the service, and explore and implement technology-driven approaches for training deliveries. Now, because of the demand, data demand in various forms, it means that we need to catch up, we need to build capacity, we need to build a staff capacity on that. And therefore, there's also an area driving the agenda. Other activities that we are planning to roll out include the implementation of structured development programs to nurture talents and ensure conduit of skilled potential leaders. Collaborate with Ameristat. Ameristat is an institution which has recently been set up in Ghana, aiming at supporting Anglophone national statistics offices to build capacity. And we are capitalizing on the allocation and the leadership to see how best they can also help us, more especially with reference to the 10% aspect of the 70-20-10, and see how best we can have a formal curriculum, well-structured, to train staff in the area of statistical production. And another one is to establish a robust monitoring and evaluation framework, including learning portals to monitor the online aspects of the training that has also been mentioned. And also to develop a staff learning profile to link capacity building to annual staff appraisal and promotion. It's also another way of encouraging staff to build their own capacity, because you can't say that you've been in the system for a whole year or 2 years and nothing new was learned. Then the question is, what have you been doing so far? So at least it fits into the appraisal form, which is completed every year, and in a way becomes a springboard for promotion. And of course, we are aiming at linking capacity building with the value of work that we do. Getting to the tail end of my presentation, the question is, are there any challenges associated with the start? Yes, there are a lot of challenges, but of course, one key responsibility of a statistician or a researcher is to find solutions to challenges or problems that you are confronted with. So when we adopted this start, we realized that it's something, well, the generic one, it was something that was very broad. As Charlotte mentioned, it had more than 150 questions. But of course, there are some scale patterns. So the first thing was to customize it to suit the organogram that we had, which was really time consuming. It was going forth and back with the team and working with GIST. And when it was finalized, then it was to be launched for individuals or for staff to complete it. That one also was another difficult thing. Staff looked at it as something that was time consuming, and therefore they weren't ready to, or they were not well, let me say, ready to complete it, because it had also other competing tasks. So there was a way of, we introduced a way of incentivizing those who would, first 100 staff who would complete this form. And that enabled us to get, in fact, over 120 or so staff to complete it, and gave us the opportunity to analyze, to know the skills gap of staff. I've already mentioned the time allocated for the face-to-face training. Because of time constraints, we're even asking ourselves, is this something that we can do within 5 days, morning to evening? Another side of it is considering adult learning. Is this something that should have the whole day or should have just 4 hours of the staff time each day? And if you do that, how many days would be required? So all these considerations are being looked at by engaging the HR for best practice, the directors of the various directorate staff themselves who are going to be trained to come into to have an amicable agreement on the timing and how we should structure it, and then get on board. Initially, with the refurbishing of the training center, I think it was a bit, it was delaying. Of course, it has financial implications and other things. But earlier, I mentioned that as I speak to you now, it's been furnished and ready for this important capacity strengthening for staff. Way forward, the last quarter of this year, we are going to have a pilot training program. Even though it has started, we have been training staff in R and other analysis tools, but with regards to the strategy we developed for the STARTS program and capacity strengthening and transformation, with regards to data production, we are saying that the last quarter of 2024 is going to be dedicated to pilot it, and then we roll it out fully in 2025. There are plans also to have strong collaboration with the global and the regional partners to organize workshop seminars on STARTS, capacity building of staff, of NSOs, on institutional transformation. And the last but not the least is to get other African countries on board. Some have not even heard about it. But with what we have gained so far, and through the creation of Ameristats, we think we can use these channels to sell the idea of the importance of STARTS to them. In conclusion, I'll say that the STARTS is a valuable resource that must be embraced by all NSOs, as it is a tool specifically developed to assess and address skills gap among staff. It's something that can even provide grounds for staff self-assessment and enable staff to reflect on their own skills. And it's a career mirror. One can put it this way, a career mirror, which is seen as a tool that has come at the right time for NSOs and requires support and effective utilization. So colleagues, I would say, let us see STARS as a powerful compass guiding NSOs towards identifying skill gaps, skills prioritization, and enhancement for better data production. Thank you very much. Circle, I'm done. Take over, please.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Peter. Appreciate the presentation. I know it's a little bit early in your part of the world, so we very much appreciate you taking the time this morning early in Accra. And excellent to see, I think, the summary very much captured the essence of the discussion, but I think it's very valuable for us to see how you have used this to inform some of the follow-up actions that you have taken in this space. So excellent. Colleagues, again, if you have any comments or questions that you would like to raise to Charlotte and Peter, please put them on the chat. We'll try to get to those in a minute. But before we do that, we have a couple of discussants joining us. Let me introduce them both and then raise a couple of questions with them as well to follow up on what we have heard. We have Ms. Aishan Hassan, apologies, from Maldives, who has joined us today. Ms. Hassan was appointed Chief Statistician of the Maldives Bureau of Statistics in August 2021. With a 2-decade career at the Bureau, she progressed through various roles in economic statistics. Before her promotion, she headed the National Accounts and the Economic Statistics Division. She's actively involved in national policy making as a member of the Macroeconomic Policy Coordination Committee and the High-Level Steering Committee on Implementation of Gender Equality Action Plan. Additionally, Ms. Hassan is a part-time lecturer at the Maldives National University Business School. We're also very happy to have with us Dr. J.S. Tamar, who is director of the National Statistical System Training Academy, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation in India. Dr. Tamar is an accomplished officer of the 2007 batch of the Indian Statistical Service with more than 15 years of professional experience in conducting censuses, surveys, capacity building, and research. He holds a doctorate and a Master of Science in Agriculture Statistics from India Agricultural Statistical Research Institute in New Delhi. Dr. Tamar has been instrumental in shaping the future of statistical training in India by handling various training programs, as well as a resource person at the NSO, as well as India Academy. You can read a little bit more about their biographies, their long careers on the Stat Cafe webpage. But for the sake of time, let me get to the two questions that we would like our esteemed colleagues to discuss. And maybe I'll turn the floor over to you first, Ms. Hassan. What are some of the major challenges you're facing in building capacity in your office and the National Statistical System in the Maldives? And then can you also share with us what are some of the main reasons for implementing the STAT tool, and what do you hope to accomplish with the results of this survey? So over to you, Ms. Hassan.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank ESCAP and ESCAP for giving me this opportunity. And Maldives was one of the 6 countries who piloted this STAT tool. So thank you for that as well. So before going directly to the question, I would go to a little bit explanation on how the statistical system of the Maldives is, because we have a very decentralized system where the chief statistician is responsible to report to the minister, and minister is reporting to the parliament and also to the president. So in the statistical system, we have not only MBS, but MBS is the lead agency where we are responsible to provide training to the rest of the statistical officers who also provide publish the designated statistics. So, for example, Ministry of Tourism is responsible to publish the tourism statistics, and so on. We have around 28 officers at the in the capital who is also publishing these official statistics, and also at the grassroots level we have the councils who are around like nearly 200 of them. So we are responsible to provide training to all of these, and so it's a huge task. Capacity building at the moment is very challenging because we at MBS also we get training from the international agencies, as we do not have a statistical capacity building institution so far. So we are trying to establish a statistical capacity building center within MBS at the moment. So capacity building is has always been a major challenge because of the limited resources, particularly funding, time, and also personnel. And in addition to this, sometimes resistance to change, and because of the
define the different phases that
it is very costly, and therefore it is very challenging for us. And sometimes in not having clear set goals and objectives within the organizations, because most of these organizations, their main mandate is not publishing the data. So they might not have enough staff or even a person to send for training as well. So it's always been a challenge for MBS and also the whole statistical system. So going to the main reasons for implementing the STAT tool, I would say that the STAT tool is very user-friendly, as it has 3 questionnaires and it is using Google Forms. So anybody could fill these forms, and also it is easy to analyze with using the Power BI, and visualization is already there. So you could use this as to analyze not only at the staff level, but also at the NSO, MBS level, and also there's a questionnaire that fills for the whole national statistical system. So it will be very easy for us to identify which organization is lacking which area. So we could focus particular trainings to those organizations. And also it would help not only identify the training needs, but also it measures the employee satisfaction level as well. And also we could use this tool to improve the employee engagement, because at the moment we have in the whole government as well, in the civil service, we have a very high staff turnover. So I would say that this is going to be very useful for us. And also for international comparison, because international agencies at the moment provide training for us. For them also, it will be easy to compare MBS or Maldives with the other organizations in the rest of the world, so that they would know how to cater our needs as well. So I would say that that's the reason why we are very willing to implement this tool. Thank you very much, and I hope this session is very useful.
Excellent. It is very much so. Thank you very much again, Ms. Hassan. And I think it's excellent to hear that you are moving ahead. Hopefully in the near future, your training institute will be up and running to better serve the needs. And hopefully the STAT tool will inform some of the decisions that you have to make in the initial setup of that institute, given the limited resources that you mentioned as well. Let me pass the floor now to Mr. Tomar from India. To share some of his thoughts from where he is sitting in the National Statistical System Training Academy there in India, on some of the challenges that he and his team are facing in the broader area of capacity building, as well as, you know, what is the appeal of using STAT tool to inform some of the decisions that he has to make. Again, I think everybody has limited resources, so probably a point that will come up here as well. Mr. Tomar, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you are able to hear me clearly. Waka?
Yes, we can hear you very well, and we can see you as well.
Oh, thanks. Very good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to all. First of all, let me thank you for this opportunity to share my views and experiences on the topic, that is state tool, and this tool to make the inform decision about capacity building or capacity needs. And as theme or tagline of the State Cafe series says, good coffee makes your day, but good data helps you decide. If I relate this in the same line with the state, so I can say that skilled manpower makes data-driven decisions, but state tool helps you decide about their capacity needs. So, as you know, nowadays official statistic since a long time hold a very important or immense role for the uh, quality or effective governance, policy making, as well as economic management and social development. And the official statistic have the quality that depend on two things, in my views. One is the capacity of the staff, as well as the mechanism or institutional arrangement to support this staff to maintain and increase their capabilities. So, as you know, capacity building particularly provide the effective knowledge, skill, and attitude to the staff. And NSSTA, NSO India is engaged or mandated to provide the capacity building, particularly
Was this tool needed?
with respect to official statistic and related disciplines to the federal government officers, provincial government officials, as well as international participants. And it is very much essential for the government officials. So they are well equipped with the right knowledge, skill, and attitude through continuous learning. And as you know, there are different learning approaches which are in practice, like physical training, digital online trainings, and sometimes hybrid, simultaneously physical as well as some participant join from distance. And nowadays there is blended learning approach. Now you may call phygital approach. First go through some kind of training online, followed by the offline training, e-learning platform, peer-to-peer learning, mentoring, on-the-job training, and there are different approaches. So in my view, as per your question, Wako, the major challenges any of the organizations are facing in building the capacity of their staff are, I may be highlighted like this. Very first is most of the trainings are rule-based capacity building instead of role-based capacity building. What I mean by this rule-based instead of role-based, because in no, and other people may agree, in traditional learning approaches, there are very limited opportunity for the staff to learn due to many factors, like due to seniority, like due to time constraint, sometimes resources not available.
Programs of
Traditional capacity building are supply driven instead of demand driven. Other challenge, I can say that staff is not inclined to opt for trainings, or sometimes they have the lack of active engagement. And this is also one of the challenge happens due to many reasons. Like sometimes people have the work pressure. Sometimes there are shortage of staff. Sometimes people have their personal preferences. Sometimes people are resistant to change. Sometimes trainings are less engaging. E-content is not so much attractive for the people to opt for the training. Sometimes the language barrier is also I observed. Apart from that, other challenges standardization issues, because generally in any organization, capacity building follows one size fit all. But as you know, uh, one side doesn't fit all. So there are need to be developed the trainings which may be useful, or tailor-made training program. Sometimes we don't have idea, limited idea about the staff, what is their level of knowledge, what are the training needs, and what is their priority to upgrade skills. And this happened due to very diverse, like India is very diverse and dispersed people workforce. So this is also one of the challenge what I found. Sometimes it is a challenge to make a balance between online and offline learning modes, because both have their pros and cons. Like if I highlight some of the challenges of e-learning, so one of the challenges lack of personal interaction in online trainings. People want to discuss, learn by their colleagues. They want to make a networking, and sometimes it not facilitate. Other challenge in online learnings is technological barriers. Sometimes due to internet disturbance, sometimes there are glitches in platforms. One of the other challenge which I can highlight, people sometimes we have the lack of the specialized trainings or new skills focused. Other is sometimes the staff are nominated officers of the training as per their interest, not as per the requirement of the job. Sometimes some in some training we have the lack of the actual experts who can do the hands-on and other things. And sometimes the budget is also one of the constraints. So these are the major challenges I found as per my experiences. If I come to the your second part of the question, or second question, which is related to what are the main reason for implementing state tool and what we want to accomplish from this tool. So well, some of the main challenges which I just now highlighted, which going to be overcome if we adopt and implement the state tool. To be specific, implementing state is a need of the hour, as my earlier speaker also emphasized that, because this state is a scientific, tested, and very systematic approach to identify the skill gaps, as well as identify the specific training need and understand the learning culture and training priorities. Because once a country or organization or implement a state tool, they are able to develop a capacity building plan and implement it to improve the needed skills that can meet the organization's vision and mandate effectively. Apart from this state tool implementation also help to allocate budget efficiently or optimally, how as well as it will foster the continuous assessment and learning culture. But one thing need to be in mind, as my earlier speaker also said, this state tool is global tool. So we need to be review, conceptualize, and test as per country requirements to accomplish the better from the results of the survey. NSSO India, or particularly my academy, we are taking initiatives to adopt this tool and implement to fulfill the training needs of not only the federal government but also from the our provincial governments, and also we interested to handhold provincial government training institute to do the need assessment and develop the capacity building plan to fulfill or achieve the objective of collecting and using the data for better decision making. If I can say in a nutshell, implementing and using the stat tool results is a vital step for any organization to identify and build skilled manpower to handle today's complex and evolving data landscapes and makes data-driven decisions. Thank you, and over to you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Tomar. And I think the point about supply and demand very much is something that we always struggle with, because we do provide trainings that maybe sometimes do not necessarily speak to the needs that are out there. So hopefully with the stat tool, we can get supply and demand to better match. And I also very much wanted to emphasize the point you made about tailor-made trainings and the various needs that we need to meet of the various constituencies that we have, which go beyond the NSO at the national level, whether it's your regional offices or other entities that are undertaking statistical training in our offices. Very good. Excellent. Colleagues, I know we are a bit over time, so thank you very much for staying through with us. I think there was only one question, Charlotte. I thank you for answering. I think some of the questions that were posted. One was more of a technical question from our colleague from Iran. Why you don't use R in the visualization and dashboard step? Was there a particular reason in the development of the tool that you chose one versus the other, R versus Power BI? I think probably Charlotte, you're probably best placed to shed some light into that that decision.
Well, I'm not even sure, because we had a technical consultant hired for that particular part. But I think it because I mean, Power BI is it's pretty user friendly in a way, and it's used to link the different databases. Basically, let's call the Google Sheets the databases we have, and R is only really used as a kind of like an intermediate to transfer the data and sort it into the database that we have built in Power BI. So yeah, I guess it's a matter of, I guess we could have done it in R, but now the choice was Power BI because it provides some easy sort of dashboards to work around.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you very much, Charlotte. Colleagues, again, thank you for being with us. I very much appreciate the time of everybody to learn more about the STAT tool. Just wanted to emphasize that for those of you who want to learn more about it, Charlotte's presentation includes a link to the tool. We'll post those presentations in the Stat Café website, so you can have them available to you at any time. I think probably now is a good time for us to wrap things up, since I don't think we have any more questions in the chat. Let me thank again Charlotte, Peter, Ms. Hassan, as well as Mr. Tomar for joining us, sharing their views on the STAT tool. I hope everybody sees now where at least to start with it, what the stat tool can be used for, and what are some of the resources available out there for you in order to use this. So thank you very much, everybody. We will, as I mentioned, share with you a recording of this through the Stat Cafe webpage. The presentations will be there as well. I know that Stat Cafes will continue, obviously, so please keep an eye out on the Stat Cafe website for future events on different domains. Thank you again, everybody. Take care and see you at the next Stat Cafe. Bye-bye for now.